politics, nothing happens out of mere coincidence. Everything in politics is normally well planned, well scripted, and executed to achieve specific political objectives. Yesterday, the Siaya Senator James Orengo, who is also the legal advisor to Raila Odinga, caused a huge storm in this country, politically speaking. James Orengo advised President Uhuru Kenyatta to do 4 things.
In East Africa, if we are not very careful, it's going to be a conflict area just because we disregard the law. I appeal to President Uhuru Kenyatta as they work together with Raila Odinga to know that democracies are stronger where the institutions of justice are strong. And that requires them to comply with court orders. Whether you like them or not, comply and then appeal, just like ordinary Kenyans do. The second thing that I must say here, I am hoping that the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta is not going to borrow any more money. We have borrowed enough. There's a time when you must learn to live within your means. And that IMF has told Kenya, please, don't borrow anymore. Because it is for us, it is us who are paying. And I hope as we do not borrow, don't burden the citizens with further taxation. I remember when we were working with President Kibaki, he was very principled on the question of borrowing and taxation. You have to be very careful on the areas of taxation and borrowing if you want to run a thriving economy. And finally, the Jubilee government is totally in a state of dysfunction. Totally. President Trump is being put on trial in the United States of America, not a judicial trial, but is being put to account that under his watch, he has breached the Constitution of the United States of America. Yesterday, when I heard what the Deputy President is saying about his boss, the President of the Republic of Kenya, I say this is unacceptable.
Now, from that statement, James Orengo advised the president to do 4 or 5 things. The first thing he advised the president to do is to start obeying the court orders. We all know that President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee government is actually known for disregarding court orders. Miguna is out of this country despite an active court order for him to be allowed into the country. The second thing he advised the president was the need for a strong democracy. And that advice is coming at a time when Uganda had just gone for an election in which Bobi Wine actually won. But the deep states, led by Yoweri Museveni, decided to install Museveni as the president. The other thing he advised the president was over-borrowing. We all know that in this country, Jubilee government over-borrowed. In fact, we are facing the problems we are facing in this country because of borrowing. And Kenyans did not just over-borrow. The president and his deputy, William Ruto, did not just over-borrow. They overspent the money and then they over-stole the money. So he advised the president to allow Kenyans just to live within their means so that we don't over-borrow again. The other thing he advised the president was over-taxation. According to James Orengo, the president should not overburden taxpayers with taxes. And he gave the example of Mwai Kibaki, that Mwai Kibaki was very clear on 2 things, over-borrowing and over-taxation. And then he also talked of the last thing, the dysfunctional Jubilee Party. And in this, he was referring to the deputy president defied against President Uhuru Kenyatta. And he gave the example of Trump. But because in politics, nothing happens out of mere coincidence, why was James Orengo giving this advice to the president? Or why was his tone changing? I want us to look at the latest message by James Orengo and what it means for Raila Odinga and 2022 general election. The message which James Orengo is actually trying to send out. But before we do that, if you're watching this video for the first time, I want you to take a second or two and click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. Now back to the main issue. James Orengo advised the president to do those 4 things. We know we are in a handshake. And James Orengo, being the legal advisor to Raila Odinga, would not have spoken those words without thinking of the implications of the words he was uttering. And today, Raila Odinga was in Soweto Catholic Church in Nairobi. And from Raila Odinga's tone, it's also clear that it's actually in concurrence with what James Orengo was saying yesterday.
At a handshake, wameshindwa na kazi. Waliahidi Wakenya mambo mengi zaidi. Walikuwa wanasema tio tukichukua hatamu ya serikali tutazalisha kazi milioni 1 kila mwaka kwa vijana. Hiyo kazi milioni 1 mmeona? Mbona hiyo kazi milioni 1? Walisema ndani ya miezi 6 tutakuwa na laptop katika kila shule. Itakuwa knowledge based economy. Mmeona hiyo? Mbona hiyo? Mmeona? Walisema watakuwa wajenga stadium kwa kila county, modern stadium, sports complex. Mmeona haya? Mmeona? Hujaona haya? Na mabarabara walisema hakuna. Sasa wanarudi, wanaona yale ile imefika ukingoni. Wanarudi sasa. Unasema sasa mara hii mtu mdogo hasla. Adio ile mama wa mboga. Adio si mtu mkokoteni. Adio ile mtu wa wilbaro. Hiyo ni domokaya.
So the question is, what is this new strategy by Raila Odinga and his team? Remember the other day I was pointing out that seemingly Raila Odinga has started changing strategy. Raila Odinga used to defend the government. Of late, we've seen Raila Odinga coming to the aid of NATS, the teachers union, NAT. And the other day, Raila Odinga also advised the government to solve and resolve the doctors' issues. So in my considered opinion, James Orengo's statement was meant to achieve 4 things. Number 1, it's actually part of Raila Odinga's new strategy to own positive narratives in this country. William Ruto has been part of Jubilee government in the first term fully, and again in second term, he's still the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. And they've been trying to run away from Jubilee failures. The statement by James Orengo basically means that Raila Odinga handlers are now keen on running and owning narratives in this country. So they don't want Team Tanga Tanga to own some of this narrative, especially the positive narratives in this country. When you talk of court orders, when you talk of strong democracy, when you talk of over-borrowing, those are some of the things which is hurting Raila Odinga, that Raila Odinga has been supporting the government and therefore is not talking about it. So probably what we are going to witness moving forward is probably a Raila Odinga working with President Uhuru Kenyatta, but pointing out the ills in this country, something they've not been doing for a very long time. In fact, it has given people like Kipchumba Murkomen, Moses Kuria, Eden Duale the moral authority to talk on specific issues affecting the country today. Like Murkomen was it in Bomet or in Kitengela, was very clear that for them, when they become the president of the Republic of Kenya, the government will be run like this, the disregard of laws will be will be things of the past, while Murkomen himself actually presided and celebrated the arrest of one man, Miguna. So I think it's now the latest strategy by Raila Odinga and his handlers to actually own positive narratives. And that's why when James Orengo made those statements, today on Twitter, James Orengo was trending. In fact, he has been trending for the better part of the day. Remember, James Orengo is not just an ordinary politician. This is a man whose predictions has always come to pass. So that's number one. Number two, it could also be an exit strategy. The handshake was supposed to bring Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga together, was supposed to bring the country together. Raila Odinga has always maintained that the handshake was not about 2022 general election. President Uhuru Kenyatta has always maintained that he has never talked 2022 presidential elections with Raila Odinga. But Raila Odinga is deeply in this handshake. What will happen today if President Uhuru Kenyatta will decide that I'm not going... What will happen if President Uhuru Kenyatta will decide that I'm not going to support Raila Odinga? What do you think is going to happen? Raila Odinga will be left hanging. So probably people like James Orengo are setting the tone, they are setting the pace for an exit strategy. So that if this handshake, because Raila Odinga said at some point that the handshake is going to end after the BBI. So assuming we are going to go for a BBI and the BBI is going to end positively for Uhuru and Raila, and then they'll decide now, let's go separate ways or work together. If they are going to agree to work together, then it will be fine. But if they're going to agree to work separate ways, then it means an exit strategy must be crafted. And that's how I'm looking at this strategy, latest strategy by James Orengo and latest strategy by Raila Odinga. Number three, I also think that it could be a strategy by the ODM party to try to link themselves from government, especially government's failures, and tie William Samoei Ruto to Jubilee failure. There is no way you can say in this country that William Ruto is good and Uhuru Kenyatta is bad. If Uhuru Kenyatta's government is bad, then William Ruto is bad. If Uhuru Kenyatta's government is delivering, then William Ruto is delivering. William Ruto in Kajiado yesterday enumerated why he's actually the best suited guy to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. That he worked with President Uhuru Kenyatta on SGR, he worked with President Uhuru Kenyatta on roads, he worked with President Uhuru Kenyatta on ABCD. But his advisors, his handlers, are always keen to portray President Uhuru Kenyatta as a failure. So probably out of those statements, the ODM party is now trying to delink from Jubilee party and allow William Ruto to own the success of Jubilee party and also maybe to own the failures of Jubilee party.
Mimi niwaulize watu wa Kiserian. Si mnajua mimi nimesaidia Uhuru Kenyatta kutoka 2013. Kazi ya maendeleo si mimi nimesukuma ya Uhuru Kenyatta. Si tumejenga barabara na Uhuru Kenyatta. Si tumejenga reli na Uhuru Kenyatta. Si tumeanzisha TTI na Uhuru Kenyatta. Siku ile Uhuru Kenyatta ataenda nyumbani next year. Nani yako na ujuzi na kuelewa vile hiyo kazi hiyo itaenda mbele?
So I'm also looking at it from that perspective. And number three, I'm also looking at it as a possibility of ODM party trying to bait Tanga to start attacking the government. Because if you're talking of obeying court order, then we know just last week, Anne Kananu Mwenda was sworn in as the governor, as the deputy governor for Nairobi, and is likely to be sworn in as the governor for Nairobi. The laws are being disregarded. So what do you expect? The Tanga guys will get the courage now to start attacking the president. And by attacking the president, basically, they are going to achieve their objectives. Because what Raila Odinga would want is a situation where the deputy president is attacking the president. And again, if you've been following the deputy president of late, especially yesterday and the day before, he's been trying again to avoid attacking directly President Uhuru Kenyatta, but trying to bring Raila Odinga into the picture. I think it's a bait for them. And that's why even Raila Odinga in Soweto today is trying to point out that the failures in Jubilee, they could not provide the 2 million jobs. BBI is going to do that. They could not revive the economy the way they promised. They could not provide the stadium. Raila Odinga is also mentioning those as a bait so that these guys are going to start attacking Raila Odinga for pointing out some of those things. So in my considered opinion, James Orengo is not a fool. James Orengo is the legal advisor to Raila Odinga. His statement was meant to achieve the specific objectives which I have highlighted up there. I want to hear from you guys. Do you think James Orengo's statement just came without Raila Odinga knowing? Let me hear your thoughts on this latest strategy. Do you think it's going to work for Raila Odinga? Thank you guys, and please may you have a good day.